being the only female doing what I do in this area, like I'm also loving surrounding myself with powerful, strong women who want to promote other women. Like it's hard to do business.
Good morning. Welcome back to In the House podcast with Toni Singh.
And I'm Jenny Woon.
And our guest today is a very special lady, Victoria Ballantyne. Victoria is the one and only female home inspector in all of BC?
No.
All of Metro Vancouver?
Yes, the Lower Mainland.
Okay, because I have to say, I've never met one before.
Neither have I.
And I love that you are in this role. I can't wait to experience your services. Why don't you share a little bit more about what it is that you do and how you came into your role before we get into some more in-depth questions?
I love working with people and helping them find their forever homes or, their home that's on the road to their forever homes. I love educating my clients. I'm not someone that's just going to report and leave. I'm always there for questions. And that actually is for anybody, not just questions. Anybody wants to call me up, a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and ask me something that I can answer over the phone. I'm always happy to do that. I owned a construction company. It was a high-end design, build, renovation company on the North Shore for over 20 years. And then circumstances happened in my life and relationships, and I decided I wanted to do something different. And this is something that had been on my radar for a while. And thought, you know what? I'm going to do that. I want to do that. So I did. And here I am.
Well, I think that what's so specific about your knowledge base, too, is that you come from that construction background and you're aware of what it takes to build a really good quality home.
It's actually a really good selling point as far as for my business. But in reality, when I went to take the courses for this, which are over 1.5 years of training to do this, I don't know if everybody listening knows this. Realtors probably do, but BC and Alberta are the only provinces in the country where you have to be licensed to do this. Anywhere else, they can just call themselves a home inspector. So I have to pass government exams, and we're umbrellaed under Consumer Protection BC.
Right.
And there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through and things you have to learn. So back to my original thing, I thought that it was going to be a lot easier because I do have that background. And it turns out that, there is so much that I didn't know, because even when you've built a house, you don't do everything yourself. You sub it out. So I had to learn the electrical. I had to learn plumbing. I had to learn roofing. I had to learn every aspect of it.
It's exciting though.
It is.
Yeah, definitely. And so how often do you have to get relicensed every so often like we do?
It's annual.
Okay.
I don't have to do any extra courses or anything to get relicensed, but I do have to submit certain things to Consumer Protection. I also am a member of the Home Inspectors Association of BC, which has higher standards for their members than Consumer Protection does. They require me to take courses all year and update my knowledge. And I have to submit copies of my reports to them every year before they will readmit me to their organization.
And not every inspector needs to belong to that association.
No, they don't. There's 2 associations, and you don't have to belong to either of them. But that's going to change in the future.
Is there a requirement for you guys as inspectors to be kept up to date with building code?
No.
Oh, that would be kind of interesting to integrate that in.
In fact, I am not supposed to use the word code, because if
it changes all the time.
do say that, then it implies to my clients and to this document that I'm producing that can be used as a legal document in court. If I'm quoting code, it implies that I know code.
I see.
And if I miss something that's code, then it's on me.
That actually makes sense.
And the code is so comprehensive, and you probably know, even the city of Vancouver has their own code in addition to the BC building code.
It is a little bit
It's
confusing.
huge, the code. Like you couldn't
Yeah.
possibly know it all.
No, I took the building code in school at BCIT, and I still to this day get, and I graduated more than 10 years ago, the building construction course, and I still get the building code emails every time it gets updated.
That's good.
And it's at least twice a month.
Oh, that's a lot.
And it's not one page either.
No. And so what about...
I should also jump in and say that most of the things that I'm inspecting have been grandfathered in too, right? Like I'm looking at a 1950s house. When that was built, it wasn't required to have GFCI outlets or anything like that. And that's okay that it doesn't. It goes in my report that they don't and recommend that they should update that. And here's why you should do that. But, there's a lot of grandfathered things in there that an inspector, a municipal inspector could come by and allow because of the age of the home.
You said that your inspection reports can be used in court. So how much insurance do you have to carry?
Ooh, good question.
It's a huge amount of insurance that I have to carry. And it is one of the most expensive things, errors and omissions, in me doing business. Belonging to my association, because they are so heavy-handed about what my report is required to look like and ensuring that it will stand up in court, that they have far fewer lawsuits for their members than do people that aren't members. I mean, I've seen a lot of reports, and there's ones that just make me want to tear my hair out. Like, how are you doing business like this? But because we are so great at what we do, tooting my horn, they get special deals from insurance company on the price of insurance because they know that these members are probably not going to be needing that insurance as much as, say, somebody else. So insurance for what I do in some places in Canada who aren't members of an association, it can be like $10,000 to $16,000 a year.
I guess there's kind of two parts to the insurance as well. From an E&O perspective, what would be considered the proper requirement in order to keep a home inspector safe for things like errors and omissions? Would it be coverage up to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million for your business particularly?
I'm required to have up to $1 million. I myself have more than that because I am inspecting, houses in the Lower Mainland.
Sure.
I don't think $1 million's going to cut it.
I mean, that's similar to realtors as well, because with E&O, we've got $1 million.
1 million.
Right.
I top our agents up to 5 million.
We top up too.
Good. Yeah. Okay. It's hard to find, insurance companies that will do that. There's only like a few.
Actually, well, that's off topic. I'll say something to you later about that. Very interesting though. So back to you, Victoria. We forgot a really important question.
Oh, yes. We always do this.
You ask it.
What is your spirit animal?
Eagle. Bald eagle.
Ooh, like that was away.
That was really quick.
Yeah, most people have to think about this.
I don't have to think about that.
You obviously probably have listened to some of our podcasts.
No.
No.
I have, but
that's okay.
I only listened to one.
I hope you're listening to your episode, though. That'll be important.
Of course I will.
We, as agents, go to networking events and conferences very, very often, just so that, we're sharing information. Do you inspectors do that at all?
No.
No, okay.
And we do have our annual meeting for my association. I personally am starting to do that more and more just on a women-centric basis.
Okay.
Yeah. I love doing what I do and I love sharing what I do. Just there's so many things that I know, so many little things that I can let other people know that makes their lives easier. Just from
sharing knowledge is important.
Yeah, and it's like one tiny little thing that I might mention to somebody that saves them thousands and thousands of dollars just because that was put in their head and they hadn't really thought about it before. And being the only female doing what I do in this area, like I'm also loving surrounding myself with powerful, strong women who want to promote other women. Like it's hard to do business. I was actually very afraid of how to market myself. I want to be taken seriously by men, but I also want to, you know, be taken seriously by women. So how do I manage to balance that? And
Yeah, I think that you're speaking to your professional offerings, right? And building the confidence for that. I have a question in regards to your inspection business overall. So on one hand, you're doing the home inspections yourself. From a business perspective, how much overhead does it cost to run an inspection business?
it doesn't cost a lot of items because I do it out of my home. I mean, I don't have to have an office to do any of that. I have minimal tools. I have ladders and then, 2 bags of stuff that I'm ever going to possibly need, and a computer. But insurance is a huge one. Software is really, really expensive.
Is it an inspection software?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. And that is a thing. And, the other regular office-y kind of stuff. So it's not really, really high.
It's not really high. Okay.
Bringing it back to your previous comment about how you're going to position yourself and your brand, and why, as ladies, as females, we have to go through having to present ourselves, and our gender getting in the way, of this. So how do you overcome that every day? How do you?
I believe in myself. I've also, I should explain that my background, I was going to be an international lawyer. Like that was my goal in life. I paid for that by doing international modeling, got my degree in political science with a minor in women's studies. So, it was...
Me too.
There you go. And now it's gender studies, I've been told by my daughter. But it was women's studies when I went. And so I've always had that knowledge that women have to struggle ingrained in me. The fact that I was modeling too, I went from being a straight A student out of high school to modeling, which was something that I never wanted to do or planned on doing. It was just an opportunity that afforded itself to me and made me able to pay for a university without taking any loans. And to go from being taken 100% of the time on what my brain was doing versus suddenly switching to 100% of the time on what I looked like was a really, really hard transition for me. And I modeled in Asia, where women are, at the bottom, specifically in Japan, where foreigners, young people, and women are the 3 groups that normally fall to the bottom of the totem pole, and me specifically falling into all 3 of those categories. I had to overcome that mentally and emotionally, which I did, no problem, by just being myself. So to transition over here to doing construction, when I was doing construction, I always have my email addresses and all of my email correspondence as Vic, so that it was gender neutral and nobody would know they were dealing with the female. When I transitioned into this, I did the same thing. And then I was told by several different men, actually, if you're one of the only females doing this, you should really embrace that and use Victoria.
As a niche. Yes.
And that hadn't occurred to me until that point. And it was that exact moment where I was like, I really have to run with this.
I want to say something to what you're speaking to, because I think it's important to acknowledge that all of those things that you experienced, for sure. I think Jenny and I have also experienced them in industry, particularly, around a decade ago. It is still experienced today for some women. I think that it's changing, which is why you probably had your male counterpart say to you, hey, Victoria, here's an opportunity. Embrace it. And it's something that you weren't used to doing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
This is, in a way, a bit of a self-destruction too. So it's like us thinking, what are others thinking of us? Whereas maybe there's no one actually thinking about.
And perhaps biases and a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Based on past experience.
Yep.
I know we're getting really deep right now, but just an interesting observation.
Well, it's also, I find people tend to generalize based on what you look like. And if I've always looked younger than I actually am. And so people have never taken me seriously for my brain based on what I came across looking like. So, if I looked different. I felt like people might take me more seriously.
I mean, it is true. You've got 20-year-old children pretty much, right? Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. You don't really look your age, quote unquote.
No,
Not to be ageist. But.
No, but when I was 21, people thought I was like 14. And, so.
What are associations like the Home Inspectors Association doing to encourage more females to enter into this field?
As far as I know, nothing.
You could be the pioneer.
There are several strong females in the organization. They are based, I think there's like a couple maybe on Vancouver Island and a couple maybe up in the interior.
It might be kind of cool if you guys formed your own thing and kind of met with each other, like an organization or a support networking group.
What advice would you say to ladies who are in construction and want to seek this as an opportunity, as a career? What advice would you give them?
I've always found it strange that there's more and more women going into the trades, and that's not strange. But the fact that there's very few going into mine, I think it might be that there's just better money to be made in the other trades than in this particular one. But in my particular one, it's very labor unintensive. I mean, I have to move ladders around, but other than that, I don't have to lift heavy things or carry heavy things, or I have to be limber. But
I'm just scared of spiders.
Yeah, you can't be afraid of spiders.
Only reason.
I don't like spiders either.
That's one of my things that I put on my Instagram posts, the hashtag not afraid of spiders.
Did you?
Yeah, I always do. But
that's awesome.
I'm having to restart that from scratch this week because I was hacked. So.
Oh no.
It's happening to a lot of people.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to happen to me because I'm too smart for that. But yeah, no, I'm not.
So in a brand new condo, for example, I'm typically on the other side where I represent the developer. And when a buyer comes through and wants to bring in an inspector, I'm like, why would they waste their money? So tell us some things that you find.
Ooh, okay.
I would love for you to share what you typically find in these type of inspections.
First of all, I would like to say that I hope you work for a high quality developer, because part of the reason that we got out of the construction industry was because it was really, really hard to compete doing it right. That being said, I find more things wrong on new builds than I ever do on older builds.
I'm glad you're saying this.
Yeah.
I would like to second that as well. Not a home inspector, but we always recommend that new homes are inspected.
So that's one of the things. And you know what? Like the municipalities are so busy and they've hired people that don't know half of, what they need to know. So stuff gets passed all the time, or they don't even show up. They just pass it.
They're not going into a building. They're not going into 200 units.
No. And they're never going to stand on a ladder and go up into the attic and check that out. They just don't. They don't even carry a ladder. So stuff like that. But one of the things that I found was windows, all of them upside down.
Oh my gosh.
Another thing.
Fail.
Another thing that I found, and this was one of the scariest things that I found, was this beautiful, beautiful condo in New West. And my clients hired me. They had already purchased it. They wanted a deficiency list to give to the developer. The developer had built this building, sold a bunch of units, and then held a few back for after COVID. So this was one of those units. And it was absolutely gorgeous. I walked in, was like, I want to live here. So I'm walking around doing my thing, and I get to one of the bedrooms, and my little unit that I stick in the light fixtures, or the electrical outlets, wasn't working. There's no power there. And none of the switches were working. Okay, well, that's strange. I'll have to go back to that. I hadn't got to the electrical panel yet. The selling agent happened to be there at the time and was following me around and said, what's going on here? I said, oh, well, there's no power right now, so I have to find the electrical panel eventually and look at that. And so they started looking around to find the electrical panel, and they found it. And they're like, oh, it's in this bedroom. Come in here. It did. And I am one of the only people other than electricians that are allowed to take covers off of panels and look inside.
Do you need a separate license for that?
Yeah, I
or
was
how?
gonna
Why?
ask that.
It's just not safe. And I don't know. You're just not supposed to. And electricians will always tell people, like, nobody's allowed to take the panel off other than us safely.
Oh, okay. I see. You mean
you're
inspectors
saying,
overall.
Yeah, you're saying inspectors are choosing whether or not they want to take it off.
They almost always do. Like, you would be crazy to not take it off because, like, what you find inside the electrical panel is
I'm sure it's a mess.
super, super important.
Yeah, yeah.
Safety-wise and
Yes.
fire-wise and electrical shock-wise. So in this case, when you open the door, without taking the panel off, you can see all the breakers and all of them are facing on except for this one that's facing off. And the realtor says, oh, look, this one is off. That must be why there's no power there.
Oh.
So you can just switch that back on and it'll be fine. And I said, no, actually, I don't do that. I said, why not? I said, well, because I don't know why it's off. Somebody might have put it off on purpose because there's a major problem, or it could have switched off on its own because there's a major problem. And if I was to just switch it, that could be the death of me. It could be set fire to the building. I don't know, but we don't touch that. They're like, oh, okay. So then I took the cover off the panel and looked inside. And this was actually last summer when it had been just as dry as this summer. And it was August, so it hadn't rained for a really long time. There was rust stains everywhere inside the panel.
A new building.
New building.
Oof.
And it was all corroded, and that's why
It was off?
It was off. So that, I definitely should not have switched that on. And I'm showing the realtor, this is why. But the problem is that my clients wanted to move into this place, and now they're faced with this panel, which happens to be on the back side of where the laundry is, which happens to be on the top floor of the building as well. So we don't know where this water's come from. We don't know if it's come from pipes, and the water was actually turned off around the corner too. We don't know if it's come from
outside.
A leak in the building envelope. And they're going to have to figure out where that is before they can even fix this panel. And they can't use this panel. They got to turn the whole thing off until we figure out where that water's coming from.
That's
which means
significant.
they can't live in this suite.
I'm surprised the developer didn't prepare the home for you, so that you can have as minimal deficiencies coming out of that walkthrough.
Well, it looked great, and I didn't find anything else that I would really have to report on other than that.
That is a major issue. I guess speaking to what you've just said, which is, okay, you're looking at a new build, there can be really big things that are wrong or need remedying. What are some telltale signs that you have seen in new builds that speak to their good quality? What are there any typical things that you would look for or look at to say, oh gosh, you know what? This home was built really well.
The devil's in the details. Just tiny little things that people might not notice, but having been in the building business, I would notice there's a right way to do things, there's a code way to do things, and then there's the best practice to do things.
So I want to go one step further with this question. Excuse me, because for me, rise and run of stairs is a big one. It's kind of if I'm walking up the stairs and I can tell that the rise and run is off, I'm wondering
That's a huge
why
thing.
the rise and the run is off. It is something very simple that should be done properly. And then automatically for me, I would think maybe quality. But for you as a home inspector, would your first go to, you're looking at everything, but what about mechanical room or something? Because there's different components of the home, right, that are more costly to remedy. So can you speak to that?
That's actually one of the things that I just found in my last new build that I inspected, and it was the HRV unit. Had so many different things wrong with it. The condensate hoses are supposed to go outside so all the water can leave the building. We're just lying there in the closet, open into the house. The type of hoses or the type of venting that they used was completely the wrong type of venting that they used. I should also point out that by the time I got to this, like I generally start on the exterior of the house and then my way inside. So it's the outside of the house that generally triggers alarm bells for me before I even get to something like that. But as soon as those alarm bells are triggered, then, I'm just honing in on every single tiny little thing.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for explaining that. I think it's useful for the listeners to know a little bit more detail about what your process is.
Two of the things that I look for on the outside of new builds right away are all of the cut ends of any wood trim painted. They all should be. If they're not, I know that somebody's slapping stuff up in a hurry and not really caring. All fasteners should be caulked.
Good tips.
Yeah. All the caulking. Anytime there's a change in materials, building materials from one to another, there should be a seal in between the two.
Thank you. How often are sellers hiring for pre-listing inspections?
That does not happen anymore.
Really?
Because the market has just been so crazy that nobody needs to do that. However, all of the pre-listing ones that I have been doing have been paid for by the selling agent, the realtors that are doing it. They want to know for their own, background.
Do you find once that pre-listing report is put out, does the seller, I guess maybe you may not be in this conversation, but do you know if they end up adjusting the price based on the report, or the seller fixes things before it goes on the market? Do you kind of have an idea of what is the trend?
The agent will insist on things being fixed. Or also, this has happened to me once where I've done an inspection and found staining on the wall or ceiling and used my moisture meter and found, okay, there's a problem here. There's an active leak. So that actually went into, I can't think of what the terminology it is, but when the agent and the sellers have to give all the information over to potential buyers about what they know. Disclosure. Yes. Thank you. Not enough coffee in the world for me this morning. Disclosure statement. So that was actually in there that this is a problem. We are currently undertaking to have this fixed. But the next people that went in there and hired an inspector to go look, the inspector put his whole hand right through the ceiling and damaged all the ceiling and all the drywall right where this was. And so my realtor was very happy because she'd already mentioned that this was a problem, and all the damage that was caused ended up having to be paid for by this other inspector, not me. So she was very happy that she had that in her back pocket because it totally saved her butt.
Do buyers often ask you, if you or me, would you buy this home?
They always ask me.
Yeah. What's your response?
I mean, they ask us that too.
I am not really supposed to answer because, I was taught you never know why somebody wants to buy a place. They might want to live in the worst neighborhood ever, in the worst house ever, because they grew up in that neighborhood. They have a total affinity for that neighborhood. Plus, they're planning on tearing it down in 2 years and rebuilding it. I don't know what the background is the majority of the time. But when people ask me that, I just say yes or no. Yes, I would live here. Or no, or I would live here if these conditions are met.
Okay. Safe answer. If someone had, let's just say $50,000 to put towards home renos, which home renovations would pay off the most for the best bang for your buck?
I'd say always making sure that you have a good roof is an important one because water is the enemy. And making sure that your drainage system is in good shape. If you can put down that you've just had your perimeter drainage inspected or redone, and people don't have to worry about that. These aren't pretty things that people like.
For sure.
No, I know.
But they're expensive things that people are always not really thinking of. But when they see them, they're like, oh, okay.
I want to ask you a question because you told me this before, but I forgot, sadly. Do you also inspect perimeter drainage? Did you say that you have a secondary license for that, or it would be through a route? Okay.
I don't.
I couldn't remember if we had talked about that before.
I would just recommend somebody to do that with a proper camera and everything. There's things I do inspect perimeter drainage. I don't actually scope it and look inside it. I will look for evidence that it's working properly or evidence that indicates that it might fail in the near future.
And therefore perhaps get a scope. Got it. What types of technology or standards would you like to see built in today's homes?
I'm a real proponent of green homes.
Oh.
So, I mean, and we're going that way anyways without me thinking that we should. Like, that's just a given. We always tried to build like the top level of green.
So when you say green homes, for our listeners, what specifically do you mean?
The energy efficiency of the home, the materials used in the home, the practices in building the home, not just throwing everything in a dumpster, like actually recycling used materials, items like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is the platinum, gold, is that still existing? Okay, there is.
As far as I know.
Okay. Because I'm hearing a lot of like step codes, step code 3, step code 4. Is that just for multifamily?
Nope.
Okay, so it applies to...
Yeah, the code recently was completely updated, and a lot of the things that we put into practice were instilled in the code that hadn't been before. Like I had mentioned a few seconds ago about like there's code and then there's best practice.
Correct.
Yeah, so a lot of things, and the majority of it had to do with the building envelope.
Maybe coming off of like being green, how about health? Living inside a home and there's lots of allergies that are forming, like new allergies, new asthma attacks, even at all ages. So have you found, what's my question here? Have you found
that there's a reason perhaps in some of these homes that's attributing to more of these allergies?
Yeah.
No, right? Because it could be airflow.
Yeah.
A lot of the homes that they're built tighter, right? So an issue that happens is if you do have a leak, you get black mold right away because there's nowhere for the water to escape to.
Yep. I find that, well, one of the things I should point out is like everybody knows the basement smell, right? Like that's not supposed to exist. It's never supposed to smell like that. If it does smell like that, it's because it's been locked up tight and there's been zero air circulation ever, or there's a problem with moisture.
I have I don't know if you can answer this, but I've always been kind of curious. Do you know when they changed the PDS, the product disclosure? Yes, I'm going there exactly. Radon. What is your experience, if any, with radon?
I do not test for that. However, I will always recommend when I see basements or crawl spaces that are dirt.
Okay, because I was going to say, what would be the telltale sign for you?
Like exposed dirt.
Yeah.
Oh, exposed dirt.
But I mean, even if it wasn't exposed, you could still have the gases coming through the floor, right?
If you have solid concrete with no cracks, then the chances of likelihood of that happening are far less.
It's fun.
There's certain areas that you don't have to worry about it. Like in North Van, it's quite rare. Like it's not really a thing.
Which areas would be hot spots for you?
I can't say off the top of my head.
No worries.
Because I don't know for sure. But that's something that I always look for. And especially, like I won't generally look before I go to an inspection. But the second that I go do an inspection in an area and find the dirt crawl space, I'm instantly going home. That's one of the first things I do when I'm writing my report is Google it. Is this area known for radon?
Are there any radon companies that you know of that are great in terms of coming out for testing or remedying?
I've never actually done that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm asking because I recently told my parents that they should have a radon test.
I can recommend a couple.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
because
Thank
I
you.
went to the Buildex conference earlier in the year.
Of course you did.
Because I'm a nerd. And I collected all these brochures.
Okay, thank you.
So,
great.
We'll talk about that later. But yeah, just we're just interested in that because it was very interesting. Like obviously it's a health concern, but they had updated the property disclosure statements and didn't really do a lot of guidance on at the time. They just kind of changed them.
I think there's a PDP course
I saw
on it.
Yeah. But again,
there's
it
so
was
much better
significant.
topics to learn.
I have
No,
a
it's
lot
the one
of
that we need to learn.
trades that I do recommend. Like I have a list because I've run the gamut of really crappy trades and trades that I would trust
We'll have
with
to hit
my
you up for your list later.
life. There's people I will recommend because I know how hard it is and
Sure.
the scope and difference between people that really care about what they're doing and
100%.
people that are just like whatever. But that's
Off
one that I
topic.
don't have.
Yeah, off topic, because you are part of the BNI Lionsgate, which is something that
Mhm.
I attended as a guest when I was an employee of a moving company. I'm wondering if I should start my own franchise, a BNI franchise.
You should do it.
In Burnaby. There's already a few.
There's two in Burnaby,
But I
think.
know that it's so impactful because the purpose is to give referrals. Do you recommend agents trying to find one so that it kind of improves on their lead gen system?
I should tell you
Yeah.
that it is almost impossible for a real estate agent to find a chapter and join it.
Yeah, because every chapter has one.
Every chapter is started by a realtor because they can't get into one,
Yeah.
or a mortgage broker. Those two start almost every single chapter.
Right. Okay.
You should do it.
You should do it.
It sounds easy. Like it must be easier than running a
It's your
brokerage.
it's our entrepreneurial spirit, okay?
I would
do
say
it.
it would be a lot of time and effort to find suitable people
I
because you
mean,
Yeah.
don't want to have people in there that aren't going
Committed.
that aren't committed, and you have to research people. Like you can get a plumber, but you want to make sure this plumber is up to the standards that you want to set for your
Right.
clients.
Yeah, there's accountability.
Yeah.
And exchange, like minimum number of leads and guests you have to bring.
Is this person going to be in the group because they want their business, or are they going to be in the group because they want to do well for their business, but also want to be in a culture of helping other businesses succeed?
Right.
I think it always comes back to alignment though, right? So you would be having aligned people in your group. And also you already have a Rolodex. Do people use Rolodexes anymore? Of people that you worked with that you know, trust, and you know the quality.
Yeah, and it's not just your chapter
I
either,
know,
right?
exactly.
Like I haven't had a structural engineer in my chapter until really recently. So I've gone out and met the structural engineer from another chapter and, found that I trust him.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Let's get back to your offerings, though, for your inspection business. So can you give our listeners an idea of the rates that you charge for inspecting a condo, maybe a townhouse, or a larger home, like a detached?
Everything is done according to the square footage of the home and the age of the home. So there's an extra fee attached if it's over 50 years, over 80
Interesting.
years, or over 100 years, because these are milestones where building practices very much changed. And also if there's a secondary suite or lane home attached to it. It's $450 for any condo that's under 1,000 square feet. And then I guess because it goes up basically every 500 square feet, I'm not really sure on my pricing.
That's
I know
okay.
for
That's a
about
basis.
like
There's
2,000 square feet, it would probably be about $550. And that's assuming it's not over 50 years old or
I
there's
think it
no
does say
secondary
that on
suite.
your website.
Does it?
Actually, and then so with your extra association and memberships that you belong to, does that, I mean, that obviously holds a lot of credibility, but can you use that badge or logo and say, hey, like I do a lot more care and a lot more educating than one who doesn't belong to an association?
I try to educate people about that fact. I mean, I can just slap the logo up there and it doesn't mean anybody or anything to anybody that doesn't know what that means. I have to, share what it means. Like, who cares that I belong to an association? Good for you.
Right.
It's like, this
Just
is
give me
why.
my report.
Yeah, this is why I belong to an association and this is what it affords you.
And after the inspection's done, what can a buyer expect from you?
Well, I send it off to them and their realtor if they want that. And then I am always there for any questions for the lifetime of the house. My reports actually come with a 400 plus page encyclopedia digital of the homeowner's guide. And anytime you want to know anything about something in your home, it's in there pretty much, guaranteed. Why is my hot water tank doing this? Well, you can probably find out. This is great. Especially first-time homeowners that have no experience at all with home ownership love having that. Back to what I offer my clients, and aside from being there in perpetuity to help them answer questions if they have them, I recently have started offering a Zoom call with them if they want to go over the report. That hasn't actually been taken up by anybody yet. I think my reports are really thorough and full of beautiful pictures. They're so easy to understand that nobody's really had any questions that they wanted to run over with Zoom. But it is something, because I don't meet a lot of my clients.
Right.
Lots of them are from overseas or from another province, or
they're at work,
just too busy.
Yeah. Okay. And when you get your license and then you start working, are there systems available or softwares available that you would buy to be able to put your information or inspection reports in a nice format, or does some inspector has to create their own?
No, I have software that does that. And there are things that I would change because I'm very detail oriented, and the devil is in the details. There's things about it that I don't like the layout of, but there's several different softwares, and I've chosen the one that I like the best with the layout. It's the most intuitive. It's the one that makes it easiest for people to understand what they're looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no perfect software. I mean, even with us, we start our business. There's so many CRMs we have to research. There's so many.
It also depends on how you run your business, right? And what kind of extra things that you want to include. So unless you are customizing it for your business, I haven't come across anything that's perfect either.
Of course, no, we never will. One of the other things that I offer for my clients is that I like to educate them, because so many of them are repeat clients, especially in this market where they're putting in offers and they're not getting the place.
Right.
So, for example, if I find something that they deem like a big deal, like polybutylene piping, if I find that and that really scares my clients, then I will teach them how to recognize it, where the easiest places are to see that in a house, so that when they're doing a walkthrough, for an open house or with their realtor looking at a place, they can just check these two spots and see if they see it. So
is it under the sink?
Yep, under the
what
sink,
are they looking
in the
for?
toilet, and also because we don't find unfinished basements anymore, really, in the mechanical room, where the hot water tank is and where the furnace is, that's usually the only place where it's open and you can see stuff. So those are the places I recommend. It's dark gray with blue writing on it, and generally has copper fittings holding it together.
What liabilities do you have as a home inspector? So, for example, do buyers come back to you maybe 3-6 months after an inspection if something happens to the property? And have they ever blamed you for not reporting it?
That has not happened to me personally. I'm sure over time it will, because
things never stay the same though, right? They can change.
It's going to happen. My reports make sure they emphatically point out that this was at the time of inspection. And that's especially important now because, like I said, water is the enemy. It can come in through the foundation. It can come in up through the drainage system. It can come in through leaky pipes. It can come in through rain. And it hasn't rained for a really, really long time. And also I've been inspecting quite a number of properties lately that have been empty. So nobody's been using them.
So it's hard to tell if there's water damage.
Exactly. I can, go in the bathroom and use my moisture meter and find nothing on the walls because it hasn't rained or because no one's been using the pipes for a month.
Yeah.
So I really have to make sure they understand, like, this is at the time of inspection what I found. These are the pictures. This is why. I also have to be really care that I label things appropriately.
Sure.
Because if I tell somebody I inspected your slate roof and it's not a slate roof, it's concrete tile, I have written that you have a slate roof. And so my client can very easily come back and say, we bought this place because you said it had a slate roof and we want a replacement. We want a slate roof. I am legally beholden to provide them with that.
I did not know that. Interesting.
I'm sure lots of clients don't know that either, but like that just is the way it is. So I have to be very careful. It's more common with stuff like, I don't want to say hardwood because it might be laminate, not hardwood.
I mean, these days they can make so many different materials look like something, right?
Exactly.
Do you do commercial properties?
I don't yet. Okay. That was actually on my list of things to do. That's another set of courses that you have to take. And it's an expensive set of courses that I haven't got around to yet.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I think we're going to, we know that you have places to go as well today. We want to have some fun with you because it's been so serious. We would like to do our rapid fire questions. Do you have a few more minutes?
I do.
Okay.
What's the most valuable tool you use on your job?
My phone.
Okay, I wasn't
For
expecting
taking
that.
pictures or something else? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What is the one thing you'd like to accomplish for 2023?
I would like to be so busy that I'm turning down work.
Do you find most inspections are like closer to Monday, Tuesday, and then just because that's usually the offer days, so you're
this
pretty
market
steady.
Is always last minute. Like, could you do this inspection yesterday, please?
Yep, that's happening.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Funny, sarcastic, and smart.
Do you fix things around the house yourself?
Yes. However, I am also of the bent of like, if somebody else can do it, I'll let them. But I will do them.
And final answer, where can our listeners find you?
They can find me not on Instagram right now. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on my website.
What's your website address?
www.allegiantinspections.ca.
Okay. Thank you, Victoria Ballantyne, so much for joining us today, especially in person. I know it's much easier to do in Zoom, but it's always great to have.
I have so many Zoom meetings that I'm always happy to like get out and actually see
For
people.
Sure. Yeah, we still need human contact.
Yes. So yeah, that'll be great. We're gonna be able to. We look forward to promoting your business within our own business to our clients. We love supporting women like yourself who are entering into an industry that's that doesn't have too much females. So thank you so much for representing.
Thank you for having me. Happy
Such
to
a
represent.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.